Oh, welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us at our now second in our winter series. Hold on, let me get this out of the way here. Okay, the second one in our winter series. We are excited to bring two industry experts in this first part of a two-part workshop to share their experiences remodeling their workflows and making the successful, emphasis on successful, transition from paper to cloud-based compliance reporting. Our focus this winter is on emerging technologies that are either available or have the potential to change the way we work. Our guests today are Marisa Ishimatsu from WRA and Pollnow from C-Level Consulting in lovely Sitka, Alaska. They represent different areas of focus and different types of companies, which is perfect, so we'll get a chance to explore the similarities and differences in their opportunities and challenges. They also have different roles in their companies, and their companies are different sizes, so hopefully their experiences will be similar to yours out there, and you can learn from them. So I'm the host and also the founder and CEO of Wildnote. One of the reasons we love emerging technologies is, well, first, I'm a total nerd and love technology and love the environment. But we really are excited because we see the potential for the work you all do to be so much more efficient and effective by utilizing the amazing things that are happening with technology. Wildnote is an app built specifically for environmental consultants managing the environmental compliance process. As Marisa mentioned in our last conversation, there are other tools out there, but Wildnote is the only one that is finely tuned to bio, CRM, and compliance. That is true, folks. We are the only ones out there building something specifically for you. We have built data collection, data management, and reporting into the app to automate as many manual processes as possible. The remodeling process is what we're going to talk about today. We'll be sharing ways to evaluate when it's the right time and when to make the leap and what the implications are. Our Director of Customer Success, Nancy Douglas.
Hi, everybody.
Is also here with us today. She's aptly named. Actually, we like to call her the Director of Customer Happiness as well, because she really likes to keep our customers happy. Nancy has some housekeeping details to share before we move on. Go for it, Nancy.
Right on. So super quick, everybody, at the bottom of your Zoom window, you'll see the chat icon and the Q&A icon. So please use chat for technical issues and use the Q&A for interaction with our panelists. And we ask you to please interact and ask all the questions that you want of our panelists. They're here for you. So thank you, and thank you, Marisa and Ann, for being here with us. Go ahead, Kristen.
All right, now I get to introduce these amazing women. I'll start with Ann Pollnow, the owner of C-Level Consulting. C-Level Consulting is a cultural resource firm based in Sitka, Alaska since 2008. She uses Wildnote to speed processes and make her company more competitive. As an archaeologist and historian, she specializes in the identification, evaluation, and treatment of cultural resources as needed for compliance with federal, state, and local regulations. The firm specializes in Southeast Alaska history and archaeology and the unique laws and regulations relating to Alaska tribes. Ann's professional work includes the archaeological investigations and research of cultural heritage sites as early as 9,000 years ago, focusing on fishing systems and culturally modified trees in Southeast Alaska. Culturally modified trees? What does that mean?
Trees that our people have used in the past to harvest, say, the innards of the cedar tree to make bark baskets.
Oh, that's so cool. Mm-hmm. Right on. Well, welcome, Ann. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much.
All right. Okay, and our first time second guest, if that makes any sense. She is an absolute, what we call super user of Wildnote technology. Marisa Ishimatsu is always finding new ways to make compliance easier, to push beyond the design and really put Wildnote to the test. She's got the best ideas. She has more than 7 years of environmental consulting experience. She has been involved with all aspects of consulting, from initial biological analysis to post-construction review. Her specialty is biological construction monitoring, as well as permit compliance documentation and reporting. Marisa loves pushing technology beyond its intended use, to find new ways to streamline and improve project documentation. Her certifications include CPR, AED, first aid, helicopter safety, all-terrain vehicle training, unexploded ordnance, paleontological and archaeological artifact identification, and SWIP. So welcome, Marisa. Thank you so much for joining us a second time.
If anyone's on from WRA, I remember hearing from Marisa in our last meeting that, you know, we could sweep her away. I heard her say she's interested in programming. Look out.
And today she did some QA/QC for us. So,
hey, Chris.
I think every time I talk to you guys, I always say like, "Hey, what about this thing?"
Yeah. Oh no, we already got a new role this morning from Marisa that we need to implement into the software. So, Rini, what were you going to say?
Yeah, speaking of QA/QC, I just want to make sure that we are recording.
Yes, we are. Thank you.
Okay, sorry to interrupt.
No, but it's very important, so thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so we love to start out these segments with a segment called Stories from the Field. And with that, I'll hand it over to Nancy, okay?
So since we're focused today on really the paper to digital transition, we wanted our guest today to share a story that relates to possibly something bad that happened when they were collecting data with paper. So Marisa, let's start with you.
Sure. I think it's still a pretty common problem with me, just because we still have to do paper binders for a lot of our projects. It's required in our permits that we have to have a paper binder on site. And when we switch off from monitor to monitor, when there isn't an established trailer on site, it's always like button, who's got the button? Who's got the binder? Where's the binder? Is the binder in your card? In your card? No, where do you live? I live over here. I live 3 hours away over here. Can we meet in the middle? Like, how is that costing the client? Like, what is going on? So, and then it's always at the end of the project, oh, well, that project ended 3 months ago. Where's the binder now? I work with a very remote team. Most people don't go into offices, so the binder never ends up in my office. So
Right.
There are all those monitoring forms. They're in the binder. Okay, where is that? Those are like legal documents. Those are compliance documents. We need them now. Oh, that person quit. We still have the binder. Like, so definitely having compliance documents in a digital format, the permits and all the other stuff in the binder, you know, if they get lost, they could get lost, but the monitoring logs need to be preserved. And so I'm very glad to have switched to digital on that one.
Mm-hmm.
Right on. Thank you for that. And how about you, Anne? Scary stories from the field?
Scary stories. Well, I live in a temperate rainforest, and as much as Right in the Rain touts their rainness, it doesn't really work. And so, yeah, a lot of reports have been lost and destroyed. Even in the notebooks, when you put them in your wet backpack, they just turn to mush. And so I'm very happy to turn to digital. I haven't had one report lost since I have.
All right, that's a success right there, right on. So in trying to help the folks that are on the call think about how they can transition from paper to digital, or from another tool that maybe isn't working as well for environmental compliance to something that's more specific to them. One of the things that we've noticed over time, when we sort of started codifying this, is like, how do you know when the time is right to transition? And how do you know if you're actually going to get a return on your investment? Because it's not just about, you know, purchasing licenses. It's also about the invested time in your training, in really moving all your workflow over to a digital platform, that kind of thing. So really quick, we created what we call an ICP scorecard. And Kristen, can you let me share my screen, or can I just grab it?
You can share
screen. I think I can just grab it. Okay. So we're going to go through this really quick, and folks who are on the call, grab a pen and a piece of paper, ironically, and you can follow along. We'll send this out as well, but this is a quick way for you to know, like, is it worth it for me to actually go down this road? So Here's some questions to ask. Is your company engaged in pre-construction, construction, or post-construction monitoring? If you answer yes to that, give yourself 20 points. And I know that WRA and C-Level both do that work, correct?
Yes.
All right. How many field data collectors are you sending out? You get a point per field data collector. Marisa, how many folks do you have typically?
I'd say about 30.
Okay. And how about you, Anne?
4.
4. All right. All right, and how often do you go out to collect data? So your choices are daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, yearly, or seasonally.
At the most, daily.
Okay, how about you, Anne? Daily, all right. And if you're doing wetland work, you could put in how many sampling points on average would you be doing, and you get a point per sampling point on that. Is your project high profile? We have learned that when you have a high profile project, you need to have your data available very quickly, and there needs to be a lot of data transparency. And so for you guys, are you working on high profile projects?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Okay, so 20 points if your project is high profile. Do you use photos and have a need for photo management in the work that you're doing?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, yes for both of you, so 10 points for that. And do you need any kind of calculations within your mobile data sheets? Is that typical?
Not for me.
No on that one. So, and how about for you, Anne?
Calculating, such as?
I think for you, it's, I mean, if I know the kind of work that you do, it's typically no, I would say, but you can, we're asking you, do you need to have sort of live calculations in the mobile field app? For example, like for wetland work, there are calculations that happen that determine if a particular sampling point is a wetland point or a non-wetland point, those types of things. I think for your work, it's probably no in general. Would that be fair?
Sure.
Okay, and who are you reporting your data to? So we have learned that the higher the level of if you're not reporting to anybody, it's maybe a tool like this isn't that relevant, but if you're reporting up the chain from client to regulatory agency to a regulatory agency with required form, then you would have more of a need. And this product would serve you well and give you a higher return on investment. So how about for you, Marisa?
It's a mix, but I'll say client, because that's usually
That's usually, okay. And how about for you, Anne?
The client on behalf of the regulatory agency.
Okay, all right. And then how often are you delivering your reports? Daily, weekly, monthly, on average, yearly?
On average, I would say weekly.
Okay, Anne? Weekly, okay. So one of the things that we've learned, so Marisa, 115 for you and Anne 94 for you. And we've figured out that if you score 90 or over in this little quick scorecard, that you will definitely get a 10 times return on your investment in terms of time and efficiency saved. Like I said, we'll send this out for folks that are on the call and you can score yourself, but these are the kinds of questions that you need to be asking yourself to figure out if it's worth it to make the transition. Stop my share here. And so then the next thing from there are figuring out which platform you want to use, finding out which data needs to be collected. And really, we had a customer the other day who said they use the 80-20 rule, which I loved. Kristen, do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, it was 80, you can get 80% of the way there with 20% of the effort. And it takes 80% of the effort to get the last 20% done. And boy, is that true in coding and software development. And I'm guessing it's true in many areas. And so they really like to make sure that they got 80% of the way there, but live with potentially not getting that last 20% exactly what you wanted, so that you're not wasting effort and time, to make it absolutely perfect, but then you've wasted another 80% of your time essentially.
So Anne and Marisa, on that subject, I was just thinking about that in terms of looking at, when you looked at the tools that you were considering, using for the work that you're doing, it's rare to find something that works 100% of everything that you need. I mean, Marisa's consistently giving us ideas for improving the platform, which is great, and it's very directed towards the work that people who do in this find out. But would you agree with that, that it's still worth it even if the tool doesn't do 100% of everything that's needed on 100% of the projects?
I would, yeah. The great thing about Wildnote is for me, there's a couple different things, but I really looked into a lot of different platforms, from Survey123 to fillable PDFs, docs to whatever. But big drawbacks were there on all of those, mainly because they're not built for our industry. So for me, having a platform that had built-in species lists was really like, that's something that I wish other platforms would have had. But it's really nice that Wildnote has those, and the customer service is obviously fantastic and listens. For example, when a species was missing last week, Nancy was able to add that. So that was really awesome. You know, we can give advice on which species lists to be added into the platform. So having the back and forth of the dev team has been spectacular. But yeah, I think, you know, these bigger companies that you might work with, like Esri doesn't really care. So they've got their workflow and they have their dev team and they're working, but we have this like back and forth between like customer and feedback to the dev team that I have here, which I really, really appreciate. Definitely don't take for granted.
I'd like to add to that just a little bit, because Marisa comes to us with the most amazing ideas and really pushes the product in a way that will benefit everybody, right? And so Wildnote gets to grow to be a product that supports more people just like her. And I think that back and forth with the dev department really does go both ways. So
I call it constructive complaining. I can get a lot done with constructive complaining. Like if something bothers you about it, mention it.
Yeah.
Know that it probably won't get fixed immediately. Now it's on their radar. They didn't know that happened, but constructive complaining is really a powerful tool.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
Yeah, we rely on folks like you to give us that information, since we're not doing the work that you're doing, for sure. So once you figure out, like, okay, I have a need, the next thing is, what about the people in your organization? Like, you're interested in, maybe perhaps the people on this call are like, yeah, I'm interested in bringing this on board into our organization. You might be high up in the, you know, as a C-level person, and you might be a field user on this call, and you could have interest in it. And how do you get synergy and the things in motion to make that happen, and convince those who are the decision makers to go forward with the transition, either on a project or for the company at large? So Anna, Marisa, you're representing kind of two different aspects. Marisa, you work as a project manager in a kind of a mid-sized company, and Anne, you own your own company. So what happened in your situations to help you make the decision to switch, and what advice would you give to our attendees in terms of trying to bring other people in their organization on deck?
Well, for me, it was definitely the ability to organize projects and organize my crew. With everybody submitting paper documents, it just goes all over the place. And as a detailed archaeologist, I like to have things very organized and just, you know, flowing well. And actually the 80-20 rule, I was going to say that I've applied Wildnote to the most random projects, such as, you know, compiling doing an anthropological ethnographic study and developing a bibliography, you know, to these construction monitoring survey jobs. So for me, Wildnote has just streamlined my business and my work so much, and it's just a part of my business now, and along with, you know, T-sheets and some of these other little apps. So I've been able to like get rid of a lot of overhead just to bring it all together with Wildnote, really.
Right on. How about
For me, yeah, for me, I started at WRA last year in 2019, and I built their compliance monitoring department. So I was hired to literally consolidate all of the compliance monitoring across the whole company and build a department out of it. And part of that for me was, when I got here, I was like, you're using paper forms? Really? Really? Oh, that's a thing still. Okay. So my main thing was like one of my first orders of business was to start incorporating digital forms. And I learned that we actually were a beta tester for Wildnote, but had never really taken off across the company. So it took someone in my position whose job it was to consolidate and to equalize all of the construction compliance projects across the company to come in and say like, hey, have you heard about this thing? Have you heard about digital forms? Can I interest you in some digital forms? and sometimes I was a little heavy-handed. I was called a bull in a china shop a couple times. Like, you know, you can bring a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. So, but it's really taken off in this year. I don't have a single project across the entire company, and that's over 30 projects at the moment that's using. I've gotten everybody on digital, which is great. So, and again, no lost forms, no lost data. Project managers can download them themselves. It's really wonderful.
And the company's really receptive to it too. I mean, when I brought on Wildnote, they were excited about it. You know, and no more lost papers and right in the rain excuses, and yeah, younger crew members coming through, and they're more familiar and comfortable with technology, and they embrace it really.
Marisa, did you have any holdouts that didn't want to go digital, like as in field crew holdouts, and how did you deal with that?
No, I didn't. And I through the 2019 field season, I had a few people that were still using paper forms and a few projects, but by 2020, project managers were coming to me saying, hey, we want a Wildnote form. Hey, you know, we're just gonna go digital on this. Like, hey, can you build this for me? So that was really wonderful. And then I've also been able to expand people using Wildnote on for a couple different things. So I have all my project-based hires, all my part-time workers, they're all using Wildnote for timesheets. So that's been really helpful to do the pivot Excel export for timesheets has been really helpful. And then I also, since we have to submit resumes regularly to agencies, I'm actually getting a custom resume export built by Wildnote so that we can isolate different species and experience of species and export just those species and that experience in people's resumes. So we can put concise packages together for projects. And that's really been helpful because I don't have to, there's version control. So I don't have to ask like, hey, Kyle, get me your updated resume. Oh, you don't have it. Okay, let me update it for you. Oh, wait, I can't update it because you've already updated it. Full version control issue. So Wildnote enables us to have very clean lines and a living document for resumes that both the folks in the field and I can edit, which is fantastic.
Yeah, that's a very innovative use of the tool. We're gonna mark that as the Marisa resume module, the add-on module for other users as well. So
it really highlights the power of the platform, which is a phrase that I like to use. That we built a platform essentially. You can build whatever your imagination desires, right? So it's a completely open and extendable and in your control to create whatever surveys you want to control. And so a lot of creative things can be done with the platform.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so you figure out that you have a need. You figure out which people you need to get in as your champions. You usually need at least one person, right? A leader who's on deck, someone who's kind of techie who's on deck. They don't have to be super techie, but techie enough to understand that. And you need at least those two people to infiltrate the company. And if you happen to be the company owner, then you can make that decision yourself. Yeah. So then the other things that we constantly hear, here's our list, ready? Of why we can't transition right now. And we all know this is inevitable, folks, but here's what we hear. We're not ready. We don't have budget. We don't have a project. We have seasoned pros who don't want to switch their current workflow. We've tried new technology. We've lost data. We're a time and materials company and we won't make as much money on a project because we will be more efficient. Our GIS department says they're make the forms for us in survey 1, 2, 3. It's too expensive to change, those kinds of things. That's what we hear. For you ladies, what can you share your thoughts on any of these? Of particular interest for me is the idea of how do you bill the cost of Wildnote back? Like, how do you justify that cost, both from the PM side of things and also from the ownership side?
Well, for me, as the owner of the firm, I have found that Wildnote has saved me a lot of money, especially in labor rates, so or labor costs. So overall, it's just part of my overhead. It has streamlined everything so much that I am saving a lot of money. Yeah, it's just part of how I do business now, and so it is built in. And I, make note of this technology that I'm using, this efficient technology, when I'm developing proposals, and it does look good. The fact that I am so supposedly organized and using this technology to, bring the client a better product and yeah, streamline the work for them.
Have you been able to win work, Anne, because you can bid, be more competitive in your bidding by using something like this?
I believe so. I think that I do know my competitors in the region, and yeah, by example, because a lot of my work is DOT jobs, and they've seen the product already, and they know how I am streamlining their the reports and the deliverables. And so yeah, I do think that it has been an advantage. Mm-hmm.
How about for you, Marisa?
For me, I mean, it's taken down a lot of my non-billable effort, as I said, in terms of doing timesheets and doing resumes and doing some non-billable work and team management. It's really cut down on my overhead. So even though that there's a upfront cost to the licenses and to getting started, I think it's really taken down my overhead costs in terms of admin requirements that I have to do. And in addition, like, I have a very remote team, and I have a remote team. Like, I manage all the folks at the company who are part-time, as I mentioned, and I'm their only point of contact. And it really has helped me manage my team with all of the remote folks everywhere. I can just be like, hey, timesheet, like, you're not hearing this from anyone else. You're hearing it only from me. You have one platform, one form, just fill it out. It's cool. Like, I've got some really good management on that. And I will say that, yeah, cutting out the additional cost of doing a daily form at the end of the day and having to prepare it in Word or PDF or whatever, and being able to do a form from the field, and when you're out of the field, you just press sync and it goes. That takes a half an hour of time out of every day that I have to budget for. Consequently, we do come in lower. We get more projects that way because we're coming in half an hour per day lower in cost than everybody else. And in addition to that, yeah, it was just making us competitive in our field. And I had something else to say and I completely lost it.
It'll come back.
Do you bill Wildnote back to your projects, like, as a?
That is what I was going to say. So there is a bit of a startup when when you first start Wildnote, you want to build the forms like you want to build them. So for example, I built myself a master biological monitoring construction compliance form, and it has a section for marine mammal compliance, a section for nesting bird compliance, a section for general construction compliance. And then I take that form that I've already built out all these if statements, like if you say to a sensitive species being seen, then the sensitive species observations pop up and you can fill all those in. It takes a while to build that master form at the beginning. Takes a couple hours, a little bit of like back and forth and troubleshooting and stuff. Then you take that form in every single project to start up the next form, copy, paste, delete the sections you don't want, it's ready to go. So it's really, really easy. So we do build a little bit of startup time into the project management task when we budget out our projects. So we do pay for Wildnote through our projects, but the more you use that startup time is, and the more cost effective it is.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense. And there's hidden costs to using paper, right? Like, there are a lot of hidden costs to sticking with the existing workflow, and a lot of places where there's efficiency leaks. So you do have a little bit of that upfront time, as you're mentioning, but eventually there will be a much more streamlined process.
We're also, I mean, we're environmental firms, like mostly, I think most of your clients are environmental firms. And for an environmental firm to be using paper it's a bad look. Like we need to be embracing not, zero waste and having a less paper oriented and paper driven workflow.
Right on. Well, we're right at 11:30, 11:31 actually. Wrapping up, what would each of you say is the number one thing you would share for the people on this call in making the transition?
I'd say that everything has a learning curve and everything is going to be difficult at first. But once you get used to the program and used to everything with regards to form building and troubleshooting, it's easy. It's an easy program to use. I've had very few issues with it. And if I do have an issue, it's right there to help me fix it.
Right on. How about you, Ann?
It is an easy program to learn, and the whole way through is the customer service has just been wonderful because yeah, we are busy, we're doing our thing, we're doing archaeology and whatever, and in that moment I'm like, what do I do? And right there, customer service helped me work through it, right away.
Right on. Kristen, what are the results of the poll?
Okay, so turns out that 17% have a 0% paper-based workflow, which kudos, and that the winner is at 25% of paper-based workflow, and that there are still a couple people out there at 50, 75, and 100% paper-based workflow. So we're real mixed across the whole range there. So perfect audience to be here with us. And I wanted to say, let me share my screen here. So share this, and then I'm gonna go here. So speaking of kind of adding to what Marisa was saying, there's a learning curve, right? Hey, it's winter. It's the perfect time for you to make that transition. We're here. You can convert with us now. You can work with with Nancy, our Director of Customer Happiness, and we can get your forms set up. We can get your workflow process set up. And when it's time to get back out in the field, you can be ready and rolling to benefit from 40 to 80% efficiencies. And along those lines, we did do a special. We've done I can't find it here. Oh, here we go. As a thank you for attending, the first 10 attendees of today's workshop who sign up for an annual subscription before the end of the year will receive free onboarding package, okay? So we have a $500 mandatory onboarding fee that really gets Nancy with you and makes sure to make your transition successful. If you sign up and convert by the end of the year, you will get that onboarding for free. So that's pretty cool. Also, I wanted to say that our next Lunch and Learn will be on January 12th, and it'll be Compliance Defiance Part 2. I love words that rhyme. With leveraging cloud technology, how to build surveys and reports to revolutionize your compliance workflow. So we've had the chance here to speak with 2 experts and talk about their transition and learn from them. And then now we can kind of get into the, the nitty gritty of like actually building your surveys and reports. And we understand at Wildnote that the reports are your work product. We take that very seriously. Like that is your reputation, and it is very important to us that it comes out as you wish. So I think that'll be a really good one for you to attend if you're thinking about converting to digital. And
I believe, Kristen, in that workshop, we're going to go through that time workflow and give a handout, a workbook handout at the end. So it's something that people can follow along and apply to their own transition.
Yeah,
right?
That's great. Yeah. We've been working on a time framework, and it's about transitioning from paper to digital, and it highlights the things that Nancy was highlighting today, but it's a more formalized, it'll be visual. So thanks for bringing that up, Rini. And I just want to thank Marisa and Anne for taking time out of their busy schedules and coming and sharing with us their experience of going from paper to digital. You're wonderful customers. You guys are doing wonderful work. And we just really appreciate you being here with us today. So, and one more thing, if anyone wants to stick around, I can promote you to panelist and we can go through the ICP questions for your company. So if you want to pop into chat, let me know and we'll see if it's the right time for you. Otherwise, have a great rest of your day and we'll see you in a month. Okay?
Thanks everybody for coming.